Hey there PCL fans, Cradily26 here, coming with another video in our draft analysis series. Today we are going over one of my personal favorite Pokemon, Tyranitar. So Tyranitar is a really strong draft pick in my opinion. It gets slept on a lot, but it obviously does have its weaknesses. And as the Rock-type gym leader in the PCL's Gym League, I'm pretty well versed in Tyranitar, and I'm really excited to kind of show you my thoughts on just how good I think he is for Pokemon Draft. So Tyranitar is really strong. You look at those stats, it's got so much bulk and so much attack. It's a really great, just bulky attacker. Something really good. I think the selling point, I would say, for Tyranitar is definitely Sandstream. Sandstream is just so good. It boosts Rock-type special defense. I think a lot of people forget about that. So you look at this 100 special defense on Tyranitar, and you get a boost from that. So it's not just that 100 special defense. Technically, Tyranitar has more special defense than it has defense usually. The 4x weakness, obviously, is one of the big disadvantages and why people kind of shy away from Tyranitar, because things like Focus Blast are very common coverage. But with the right team build, you can really build around that super easily and just have Tyranitar be an absolute monster on your team. The bulk, the attack, even the decent special attack, 95 special attack, there is really nothing wrong with Tyranitar besides the speed. But that really keeps it in check. If Tyranitar had a lot more speed, say above 100, I really don't think it would see play in draft because it might be banned. Maybe the fighting type weakness keeps it in check enough that it would stay, but I think the fact that it has to boost its speed to really sweep keeps it where it is at. But I think it's still a decent tier 1. So with that, let's look at Tyranitar's moves. So common moves, obviously Stone Edge and Earthquake are the two most common. The Edge Quake combo covers almost every Pokemon you can think of. There are obviously exceptions and why it's not perfect coverage, but it's really good. Dragon Dance is obviously the setup of choice. You get that little bit of speed boost that can get you above a lot of Pokemon, and then the attack boost is just really nice on top of that. Pursuit is probably the main reason you draft Tyranitar besides Sandstream. Having a good Pursuit Trapper is just really strong. Crunch is a great Dark Stab. On top of that, you throw Stealth Rock in there. Stealth Rock is one of the most coveted moves in draft. It's really good to be able to throw onto things. And to be able to get your rocks up easily with the bulk that Tyranitar has is pretty nice. Superpower, really great coverage if you need steel types that aren't hit as hard with Earthquake. Fire Punch and Ice Punch, he even gets Avalanche too if you need to run that. Iron Head, great coverage for hitting fairies, which do hit Tyranitar super effective. And then Taunt. Taunt is such a great move that a lot of people kind of sleep on and don't use as much as they should, I think. It's just really good. Tyranitar's a little slower, so the Taunt comes off not quite as great as some other Pokemon, but it's still there and it's still really useful. Some other moves, you got Curse and Rock Polish as some other setups. I think Rock Polish is actually really good and can be really useful. Curse as well, maybe on a Trick Room team, or if you really aren't too worried about fighting Stab and just boosting your defense and sitting on teams, it's good. I think it's a little less good though because there's just no reliable recovery on Tyranitar. Fire Blast and Ice Beam are really good for a mixed Tyranitar, which I have on one of my sets that I'll show you guys in a minute. I think that's actually really good coverage. Thunder Wave is really fun to throw on things that come in at you that you want to cripple if you predict a switch in and you want to make sure they're slower than Tyranitar, so that way Tyranitar can just hit them back harder first, because most Pokemon are expecting to outspeed Tyranitar and kill him that way. So Thunder Wave, I think, can actually be really fun tech. Roar, Dragon Tail, so phasing is always really good if you need it. Power Up Punch, great move. Earth Power and Focus Blast I don't see as much unless you're running some really weird set. I'm sure you could try to surprise an opponent with a Specs Tyranitar, but that's probably not quite as good. I think a mixed set is better, and in a mixed set you're probably going to want Earthquake over Earth Power just about every time. And then Brick Break is just an important one to bring up because screens are everywhere in draft, and I think it's just really good to bring that if you're expecting the screens. So why are we drafting Tyranitar? Sandstorm, that's the #1 reason you're getting Tyranitar. Running weather teams is just fun, a lot of people really enjoy it. Draft Sandrush, Sandveil, and Sandforce Pokemon onto your teams. Tyranitar is obviously the best Sandstorm user, the second best probably being Gigalith, which is still a really, really strong Pokemon, but obviously you really want Tyranitar over that. Tyranitar brings a lot of power to the team. It's a very powerful, bulky attacker. It has good setup options. It has ways to get around its speed if it's allowed to set up, which I think is good. Planting cords around it is really good. There's a lot of Pokemon, which I'll talk about later, that you can draft with Tyranitar to have really good switch-ins to be able to keep your opponent on the defensive, basically. If you want to draft Rocky MZ, Tyranitar is probably the best option you have to run Rocky MZ on. The next best being Terrakion. Terrakion's another really good Rocky MZ user. Just because you get the stab with that Stone Edge is really nice. Pursuit trapping is so important, especially in leagues with the Mega Latis running around. Some leagues ban them, some don't. Mega Tyranitar is a great counter to those with Pursuit. That Pursuit hits really hard. And then Stealth Rock, obviously everybody wants a good Stealth Rocker on their team. This is one of the best Tier 1 Stealth Rockers. The bulk lets it happen. So what are some good sets? I think the most popular set obviously is going to be Choice Band. I think it's the most common on ladder, and it's probably the most common in draft, just to be able to punch holes in teams and break some walls. You're going to run Stone Edge, Earthquake, Crunch, or Pursuit, whichever one of those you think you need the most, and then either Ice Punch or Fire Punch for coverage, or Superpower if you really need it. Just depends on the team. It's really nice having that 4th slot, be able to kind of switch a move in or out that you need for coverage based on your opponent's team. It gives you just nice coverage to be able to take on anything you're predicting to come in. Policy Dance I think is really good. Weakness Policy, because Tyranitar is a rock type. I love rock types, but we have a lot of weaknesses. So putting Weakness Policy on a bulky thing like Tyranitar is really nice. It's going to live a hit unless it's a fighting move. So if you're predicting something like a water move or a grass move, like this is a really nice set to be able to run. You run Rock Polish or Dragon Dance, you get the Weakness Policy boost, and then you can just sweep teams with this. It's really slept on, and I think one of the reasons people don't bring it though is because of Tyranitar's weakness to most priority. So definitely scout out the opponent's team for that priority, but then you should be able to just kind of wreak havoc with this team. And then lastly, I've got my own personal set down here that I run a lot on mono and I think is really fun. It's my Mixed Godzilla. So Assault Vest or Rocky MZ or Smooth Rock, whichever you prefer. On mono ladder, I can't run Smooth Rock, so I'll usually opt for Assault Vest. Unless I'm not running a Rocky MZ user, then I might throw that on this set. You run a Brave Nature, you're not worrying about speed with this set, we're not trying to boost the speed, and then that way we're not nerfing that special attack on you because we're running Fire Blast and Ice Beam. That Fire Blast does so much more to Ferrothorn than a Fire Punch does, and you don't get the Iron Barbs back in your face, basically. And then Ice Beam I run for Landorus. It's really nice to be able to kill him, or for something like Garchomp. Garchomp is a big check usually to Tyranitar because Garchomp can outspeed, but if you can predict that switch and hit it with an Ice Beam, it's going to hit harder than Ice Punch probably would. Most people run a lot more defense on that. So it's just really good tech to be able to slap onto Tyranitar, and the 95 special attack is fine. Good for a mixed set, I think. As far as checks and counters, fighting types, obviously. Obviously, fighting types are the biggest problem. Something like Conkeldurr that hits hard and it's super bulky. Literally, Tyranitar can't do anything to something like Conkeldurr. Big check. Bulky waters and fairy types can't quite do. Like, they're a little more afraid to switch into a banded set. A banded Stone Edge is going to hit hard. But they're still really strong checks because once they're in, they're going to threaten Tyranitar a lot. Steel types that aren't weak to Earthquake, so something like Scizor is huge against Tyranitar. I bring up Breloom because that's one of the biggest counters to Mono Rock. just in general, its ability to outspeed most of them, hit them with the Spore, and then just Mach Punch to death or Bullet Seed to death is so good. Breloom is a big problem, so you want to make sure that these are kind of the things you're thinking of when you draft Tyranitar. You need to make sure, okay, do I have an answer for Scizor? Do I have an answer for Breloom or Conkeldurr? Things like that. And then obviously always scout out for the Focus Blast. Anything that can run it probably is running it against you, since the opponent knows you're going to have Tyranitar. So just watch for the Focus Blasts and try to work around that. So with that, what are the best draft partners? So I think Mega Venusaur is the best one. And I have so much experience with that because in our gym league, the leaders, like I'm Mono Rock, can run one Pokemon that's not Rock type. So I get one Pokemon that's not my Rock type, and a lot of times I bring Mega Venusaur because Mega Venusaur switches into everything that Tyranitar fears. Be it fighting, or fairy, or water, or grass. Literally, Mega Venusaur just sits on those and soaks up their damage and can hit them back. Especially fairies with Sludge Bomb. It's really nice to be able to switch something like Mega Venusaur in. And then on the flip side, Mega Venusaur's got two big weaknesses that everybody knows about. It's flying and it's Psychic. Those are what Mega Venusaur doesn't like. Tyranitar takes both of those hits very easily. It doesn't take anything from Psychics, and flying types really don't like Tyranitar. So they are just almost the perfect combo. I say almost because the Sandstorm does nerf Venusaur's Synthesis. That being said, you're going to be running Giga Drain anyways when you're running Tyranitar. So I think it's okay. I think it's still a really good combo. And even if you don't get Mega Venusaur, look for things like Vileplume that have the same typing and still decent bulk. Or getting things like Tangrowth are really good for your team. Other things to consider with Tyranitar is something like a Ghost type. Ghost types can switch into those 4x fighting moves and take 0 damage. They keep your opponent guessing. Your opponent has to predict a lot harder when you're running Ghost types. So something like a Dusclops could be really great for your team. Running that in against fighting types and then running Will-O-Wisp is just really, really strong. And then obviously Sandstorm Abusers. If you're bringing Tyranitar, you want to try to get at least one Sandrush, I think. If you're not able to get Excadrill, who's obviously the best one, Lycanroc Day and Stoutland are really, really good tier 5 Pokemon that have Sandrush. Really good to abuse it. I love both of them on teams with Tyranitar. I think they're great. So our overall ranking here at PCL is an A-. I think Tyranitar almost made the top 10 tier 1s. I think he ended up around 13 or 12 in our video, which is still really good. He's one of the greatest offensive pieces you can draft. He can keep your opponent guessing too. Don't be like everyone and just run the banded sets. You can run a lot of fun things to try and make it so that Tyranitar is not just a sitting duck for fighting types, basically. You can draft it late round 1. I've seen that happen, but overall, Tyranitar gets drafted rounds 2 or 3. Usually doesn't survive long past round 3, so I would probably draft it before then. But, I mean, an A- is still really good. It's still really strong. It's just probably not going to be your first tier 1 choice. But it's good to build around another tier 1 or another really great mega that you do take round 1. It's going to be really, really good. And it's fun. So that's it for me on this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We are going to be bringing you guys a lot more draft analysis videos. We are all the content creators are talking about it and trying to get these out, especially as Season 3 is now winding down and we are ramping up for Season 4 in our draft. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and that is it from me.